The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular franchises. And today we are talking about Silent Night, Deadly Night 4, Initiation from 1990. John, are you ready to discuss this Christmas movie that definitely takes place at Christmas and is about a Christmas slasher?
It's so Christmassy. Oh, it is the most Christmassy Christmas movie you could ever hope to see.
I mean, in the grand tradition of the first three films, we are smack dab into not Christmas at all. I think there's like a Christmas Eve scene.
Yeah, there's like one Christmas kill. Yeah, a bunch of scenes that were clearly like, yeah, this can happen at Christmas. It's fine.
Yeah, not a speck of snow, or once again in sunny California, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this script was for part 3. But someone basically said, hey, where's all the Christmas stuff? They got rid of it. I guess that was Monty's decision. And they saved it for part 4, even though there's still no Christmas stuff.
Yeah. And I've heard some different things about like some of the stuff coming from, this was written and directed by, as we mentioned last time, Brian Yuzna.
Mm-hmm.
The guy he wrote with S.J. Smith, he'd also written Society with him.
Yes.
And that some of these ideas were ideas that were unused from Society that they used here as well.
Right.
And apparently the executive at Live Entertainment, Richard Gladstein, just told them that it had to take place at Christmas to tie in with everything else, but otherwise just kind of go wild.
Yeah.
And I guess they did.
They did go wild. This movie is called Bugs in the UK, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Because there's just no Santa slashing. There's nothing having to do with the previous films whatsoever. And this is very much... And we'll talk about this in depth when we get to the Hellraiser series, but this is so much a product of, oh, you got a script flying around? Let's just plug it into this franchise, throw in something slightly similar so we can call it a Silent Night, Deadly Night or a Hellraiser film, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, it feels way more like that than it does people have obviously compared this to Halloween 3, where it's just like, well, yeah, it's this formula that exists for 2 movies, then it goes away. Whereas there's always the explanation that John Carpenter wanted Halloween to be a anthology or something like that. This is just, no, we're all just tired of this gimmick and we want to do something else. But hey, this movie's making money, so this name, we can probably make some money off of it. And apparently, like, Brian Yinza took the job because he just wanted to keep working because Bride of Reanimator and Society weren't distributed yet in the US. So he's like, well, I'm not real sure about my career prospects. So yeah, why not? Why not just keep making this? And I like how so un-Christmassy it is that when the title shows up, rather than becoming the Silent Night, Deadly Night, it stretches across the screen, and rather than becoming like Christmas color, something like that, it becomes Rasta colored.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it's red, yellow, and green. It's this like, oh, okay. Merry Christmas.
Brian Yuzna style. Brian Yuzna is pretty interesting because he was running around with Stuart Gordon a lot at the time. I believe he produced a lot of Stuart Gordon movies, and then he started directing himself, most notably Society, but he also did the Stuart Gordon sequel, Bride of Reanimator, which I just saw at the Hollywood a couple of months ago, which is pretty fantastic.
Oh, nice.
And he did direct Return of the Living Dead Part 3, which I think I've seen, but those movies are fun anyway. But yeah, if you have not seen Society, turn off this podcast now and go watch Society and come back. It'll help explain a lot of this movie, but also you'll enjoy your first shunting.
Yes, as much as you can enjoy that. But it's also a great comparison of like, hey, what if this movie made sense?
Yeah.
Hey, it's Society.
Right.
This. Because Screaming Mad George, some great physical effects like that, but not a creamy center here. Just sort of things happening. Yeah,
a gooey outside, definitely. Lots of
absolutely
slop in this movie. Yeah, that's the funny thing, and I bet I'll return to this a lot as we talk about it. But taking this movie out of this franchise, do you think that you would like it more? Like not knowing that this is Silent Night, Deadly Night, and just on its own.
I think I would probably like it the same. Like it did take me a bit to be like, oh, okay, well, I guess just we're done with the Caldwells and all of that, whatever. But so I was trying to enjoy it as it was, but then like I think it's got some just significant problems with it that I can't totally get on board with. I mean, there's some great stuff. There's definitely bizarre swings that I kind of enjoyed, but as a whole, yeah, it's not really my thing. So I don't think,
Sure.
although I can imagine if you're going expecting Christmas horror, getting this is not going to be what you want.
Yes.
But I think that doesn't hurt it as a movie.
Other things do. Yeah. So the big highlight here, as you mentioned, makeup by Screaming Mad George, which is also Stuart Gordon's guy from this time, and he did all of this crazy Society makeup, which again, go watch Society. That is,
and I believe, didn't he also do stuff in Freaked?
I think so. Yeah,
he did stuff in Freaked, which is a hilarious movie. And I was worried I wasn't going to enjoy as much as I did when I was a teen, and I was wrong. It's still great, and the effects are fantastic.
Yeah, this man is a genius, definitely, and Society's probably his high point. But there's so many effects in this movie that reminded me of Society anyway. So very clear,
and they're good.
As we dive in, also the last thing I noticed right off the bat was Richard Band did the music, who is also Stuart Gordon alum. So just going into this film, I was like, man, look at all these, like, look at the pedigree of B movies here. Like, this is fantastic. I like all these people for different stuff that they've done. So that at least kind of laid a groundwork of sitting forward on the couch. Like, this ain't going to be so bad, is it? Yeah.
It's. I think it made some of it hurt a little bit less because you're like, oh, well, these people know what they're doing. I'm sure it'll come to something. But the music's fun, and as we said, the effects.
Yeah. We begin with Clint Howard, and if you don't know who Clint Howard is, he's very much that guy actor from the 80s and 90s and B horror. I mean, he's been in a ton of movies. He's also played a Ferengi on Deep Space Nine. So he shows up in kind of anything that'll give him work, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I mean, he's been around, and he's a working man's actor, definitely.
And there's a lot of call for weird looking guy, and then Clint Howard is there to answer that call.
He is a weird looking guy. He plays a vagrant who watches a woman who is on fire fall to her death from a 5th story rooftop. I did want to double check who this actress is, and she's uncredited in the film, so she may be a stunt person. But he walks up to her and starts kind of like investigating the fact that like from only the waist down she is burning, and that's the significant bit. Yeah,
she looks like she's on fire while she's falling, and then when she lands, like it's just been her lower half, and it's gone.
Yeah,
like it is that guy in Beetlejuice that smoked in bed, and that's how he died. Like her legs look like that. Yeah, and there's a hole in her butt, and he like reaches in to see if there's something in there. I guess
a very Clint Howard move.
Yeah.
After the opening credits with the Richard Band music, we cut to our two main characters who are having sex in a hotel room. And the woman is very preoccupied with the fact that on the television, they are reporting on the woman falling to her death instead of paying attention to her lover in the hotel room, which I thought was kind of funny.
Like it's supposed to be dispassionate, sexy, but they're also like, what's on the news? What's on the local news?
What's Bill O'Reilly have to say today? When the couple leave and they start walking down the street, and we find out like they both work at the same LA newspaper, the LAI. Yeah, she wants to be a reporter. She wants to investigate the woman who fell to her death. And he basically just wants to keep looking cool in his black turtleneck and leather jacket combo, which did look kind of cool. I mean, I'm a little bit of a sucker for some of that fashion.
It looked like he was going to be a guest on Sprockets. It was ridiculous.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, he's very cool guy. Then she's like, well, hey, what about tonight? She's like, you want to meet my parents? I thought we were just kind of a no strings attached deal.
Yep.
Fine, whatever. Tom begrudgingly agrees to that.
Right.
So we get a little taste of what their relationship dynamic is.
Seems rather one-sided.
And then after their conversation, they go to their jobs at the LAI. And wait a minute, I'm getting a signal here. I'm picking something up on the tracker. It's a clear signal, and it's headed our way. 8 meters. 7, 6.
That can't be. That's inside this room.
It's reading right, man. Look.
Well, you're not reading it right.
5 meters, man. 4. What the hell?
Oh my God.
Oh shit.
Give me the light.
We're hot as love, you know.
Reggie!
Reggie Bannister. We have Reggie sign. This was absolutely a jump out of my seat moment because when I knew that it was Brian Yuzna, I was just like, I don't want to read anything more about it. I don't want to look at the IMDb. I just want to be surprised, as these movies can surprise you. And like we talked about last week in Extend, if character actors show up in a movie, I just feel like I've done well because I get to check it off the box. Like, I saw another movie that he's in. Reggie Bannister's in this movie, ladies and gentlemen.
I was so excited that Reggie escaped containment. I thought he was just in the Phantasm movies, and when I saw this, I was so stoked.
He just waltzes in. It makes me wonder. He's not in the film too much, maybe like 2 scenes or so. And I was like, they really only had him for an afternoon at the Reggie rate. You know, I'm just like, which is probably like not that much, but you know, we're paying homage to Reggie Bannister crossing over into the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise.
Love to have some crossover there. This isn't the first one because we had the Final Destination, that actor who was in Final Destination 5 that was in the Friday the 13th remake. And then we've already had a Friday the 13th crossover with this in part 2. But this is our first time that Phantasm has slipped containment because you think that's its own isolated environment. But no, it gets out. And and I was already distracted because I recognized first who was with Reggie was Alice Beasley, actress. A lot of people around our age will know her from Moonlighting. She was also in Legally Blonde and stuff like that. But so I was like, it's that. Okay. It's oh my God, it's Reggie! Like it was. I was so stoked.
Oh, he's so good too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he just shows up with that Reggie swagger. You know, he just walks like Reggie. You know, like only Reggie can walk.
Even though he's wearing a sweater and like has little half glasses.
Yeah.
Still, there's a vest underneath all that. Yeah,
exactly. He takes off the sweater, got a vest on underneath it, and a white button-up shirt. He plays Eli, the I guess you would call him the editor-in-chief of the newspaper. Kim starts pitching to him like she wants to write the story about the woman falling off the roof. And Eli barely pays her any mind and wants Hank to cover the story instead.
A woman died here. Spontaneous combustion, that means nothing.
Oh, Kim, classifieds. Have you gotten them posted today?
Yes.
Good job. Come on in, guys.
Listen, I've been working real hard around here.
You know, I haven't seen anybody work harder their first month.
Eli, maybe...
could you make some fresh coffee, please? Thanks.
So we basically just get this long scene of, as much as like we love Reggie, him just not paying attention to her as a female reporter at all.
She's already mad because the boyfriend, Hank, is really like, hey, I don't want people to know we're dating, even though it's pretty open that they just went and,
Oh, yeah.
Then when she's like, I want to do something else, she just does the calendar and the classifieds at the LAI, wants to expand her horizons. Hank's like, oh no, I don't, you're getting too close, baby.
Yeah.
And I love it because I love when she goes to like kiss him and he like leans in and then psych, like, no, not at the office.
Yeah.
And then it's a boys club that's just shutting her out. And this is weird because I had to go back and watch this the second time. They just, one of his coworkers, played by comedian writer Hugh Fink, just says spontaneous combustion. Everyone just immediately like leaps to that conclusion. But so what I think happened is that the cops went to investigate. They're like, well, it jumped on the roof, looked at the flight of stairs and just went, man, that's spontaneous combustion. Look at that. That's wild. Oh, just donut crumbs falling out of his mouth. But because there's no reason that would be like, oh yeah, obviously that's what it is. But that fuels this whole movie.
It's the inciting incident of the whole thing. Maybe that cop was a fan of the Tobe Hooper film from like the late 70s, early 80s, which I've still never seen that movie actually.
Me neither.
But it's kind of remarkable in horror movie logic how everybody just jumps to something that like pretty much never ever happens. Yeah. But they're all game for it.
Yeah, we talked about that heavily in the part 6, Friday the 13th part 6, how Tommy is like, here's how we need to defeat Jason, and it's like, okay, I guess this guy knows, But so someone just says spontaneous combustion, and so she's like, well, I'm going to go investigate this.
Yeah.
It's not weird that this woman was set on fire and fell off the building. It's weird that she spontaneously started on fire. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Nobody pushing her.
Yeah.
So she goes to interview or just kind of like skulk around and talk to people, witnesses at the scene. She talks to a gentleman who is covered in blood, who looks like he's like a butcher at like a Chinese restaurant type of thing. Just kind of gives her the, like, she's not from around here.
How did she get up to the roof?
Through building. From any apartment and building. What do you think she do up there? Could be hooker, huh?
She ends up leaving him behind, and she sees the funniest chalk outline I've ever seen
so good.
in a movie.
It's good.
It's just the top of the body in an outline, and then I guess you can kind of see the legs, but it's like charred and blackened. It's like a Looney Tunes gag.
Yeah, their legs are marked where they are, so I don't need to draw around those. Again, just a lazy policeman in this town. But
Right.
yeah, it was so funny. It made me think of like a Naked Gun kind of gag or something like that. How when they find Nordberg,
Certainly.
how the chalk outlines on the water. Really, he just left it there. Really cracked me up.
She then wanders into a bookstore that's like right next door to the building where the woman leapt to her death. Clint Howard is in the store. Now, is this where we find out his name is Ricky?
Yes.
Clint Howard plays a homeless man named Ricky, who is the name of our last couple of movies, slashers. They never clarify at all whether he is like Ricky Caldwell. I'm guessing no. This is their fun little thing to tie it all together. It's more just dumb.
It's more just dumb because,
really.
like, really, you'd have to imagine that if it was that Ricky, that they had the top of his head just on ice.
Yeah.
They're like, well, he's going to get tired of the dome eventually. He's going to outgrow the dome. So we're going to need to put his head back on.
And just stitch it together.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's not like continuity between these previous three movies are that big. But yeah, I think it's just hey, look, it's kind of, we got a character named Ricky too. Look, it's Silent Night, Deadly Night. Look at that.
It rhymes. It rhymes. He's wandering around the store following Kim, finds her in the occult section and just like leans down and touches her back. Very similar to the way he like sticks his finger like in the butt cheek of the burned up woman's body. But it almost looks like he leaves like a salve on her.
Yeah.
That like comes in later.
Yeah. I don't know if he's just naturally slimy, but that actually, if he was naturally slimy, then what happens later wouldn't have to happen later.
Right.
Yeah. That he was leaving some sort of residue of some sort on her, which was upsetting. And then she screams,
Get away from me! Leave me alone!
No, Ricky. Now you go back up.
Hey, I'm really sorry.
and then she apologizes to the owner for freaking out. I mean, there's supposed to be this underlying thing of sort of feminism underneath in the sense that's like that, without getting too far ahead of ourselves, that like, this woman is not listening to her job and she's struggling to make a name for herself. And then this weirdo is assaulting her, but then she apologizes for it. And I'm like, oh, that furthers the problem. Like it's, a weirdo was touching you. Maybe, it's okay to be mad about that.
Maybe this is just showing where she's starting in her feminist journey.
Yep.
She later learns that she does not have to apologize to the weird Clint Howard guy who's like smearing her with muck in the store. This did make me laugh too. She's like looking for a book on spontaneous combustion, and the store owner just like, oh yeah, here's a stack of them. Like here's a few on this subject. Now, it's been a while since I've looked up spontaneous combustion in like a Walden book catalog or something like that, but I'm sure I did as a teenager because I thought it was interesting. Not that many titles.
I wouldn't imagine.
Probably not too many now.
Yeah. I mean, with self-publishing being what it is, there might be.
That's true. That's true.
Might have exploded onto the scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the bookstore owner is played by Maud Adams, a former Bond girl.
Yes.
She was Octopussy.
Yeah.
It's just kind of funny because former model and our lead actress, Nath Hunter, is also a former model.
She is also wearing a pretty fantastic butterfly necklace that looks like a piece of armor on her front, on her chest plate.
Yes.
She lives upstairs and she offers Kim a treat, like kind of a date, which of course I just thought of Indiana Jones.
I thought they were rocks at first.
Oh, right. Yeah. She spits out the seed and hands it back to her, which just to me just means some sort of like weird occult nonsense going on. Like, I need the saliva of the person that I'm going to be tracking down.
Yeah, don't just give that away. You got to hold on to that.
Yeah, exactly. So the owner gives her a free book on feminist like occult magic.
Some wicked nonsense. She's talking to her about the spontaneous combustion. As she's checking out, she tells her, like,
There's got to be some logical explanation for the burning. No, there is no logical explanation.
There's something so stilted about that I just really got a kick out of.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And hands her a book that, probably will not explain it either.
Not at all.
At this point, I just wrote Silent Night, Deadly Night, John.
Yeah.
We're in this Christmas slasher right here. We're, talking about feminism and the occult, and which is all great, but,
long way from Baghead. We've come a long way from Santa's Baghead.
If we ever made merch for this podcast, Long Way from Baghead would probably be a good.
That'd be a good, yeah.
Anybody want that T-shirt?
Yeah. This woman, after giving the book, invites her to join her book club. Some friends that have, but they're going to have a picnic and talk about books and stuff. And so please come and join us. And then, as often happens when you go to a store, she kisses her on the head.
Yeah, exactly.
Not weird at all.
So if anyone ever invites you to a book club, you just say no. I read constantly. Never be a part of a book club myself. Just can't do it.
I think, from everything I know about book clubs tends to be like the reading is ancillary. It seems like so often it's just like an excuse to get around and chat.
Drink wine and chat.
But I might be spreading stereotypes about book clubs. So sorry, book club purists.
Oh, are you some sort of reader?
Yeah.
That you actually want to read?
Yeah, no, I've never read a book. I'm not about to start.
You only watch Clint Howard movies.
That's it. He gives me all the information I need.
So since she's there, Kim just decided to try to get up to the roof where the woman throws herself from, or falls, or is pushed, or whatever.
Yeah, and Fima's happy to show her up there.
Oh, right, yes. As she mills around for a while, the camera zooms in on a kind of like a neat skeleton burn mark, which I don't think means anything to the rest of the film, but it was kind of a cool little art direction thing there.
Yeah, well, it's also funny and kind of tells you how maybe run and gun this thing was, because as she exits the door to the roof, there's a sign that says keep door closed, and there's a skull by it. Very out of focus, but they stay on it. They're like, was that in focus? Doesn't matter. We're using it. That's the one shot we got of it. Yeah. Sorry, we got to use it. Boom.
We've got footage. Yeah. She stands on the ledge, kind of tempting fate to get into the mind of the victim type of thing. And here comes Clint Howard, ambling around on the roof. He goes up to a vent and pulls out this rad maggot puppet type of thing. It made me think of a much, much larger version of the parasites that Khan puts in the ears.
Oh, yeah.
In Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan.
Worms or whatever.
Yeah. Being a Star Trek guy, I should know the names of those aliens, but, some nerd, I guess, can let us
just
know.
Get super mad listening to this podcast and just keep saying it out loud like I do every time someone gets something wrong.
Exactly.
But it's huge and disgusting. And this is the first time we see one of these bugs. She starts freaking out because she's got ants on her. She's like, oh, and starts brushing off the ants. Yeah, the ants aren't the problem. I mean, that's weird that you have ants on you, but what the fuck did he just show you? Why is he on the roof? And this guy that touched you, you're alone with him on a roof, and now he's showing you a giant bug. Yeah. And you're like, oh, but there's things on me. Oof.
And I was going to say, and there's also a giant maggot thing, you know, because otherwise we're just talking about Clint Howard just hanging around you.
But I was struck by, there's a shot underneath of her. It's when she's looking down, the camera's underneath her, and it's just her against the blue sky. And I was struck by how pretty that was. This movie, the restoration of it looks great, because this was gone for a long time. This really just wasn't available until they put it on a DVD or a Blu-ray with.
It was 3, 4, or 5. Yeah.
That was the only way it got any kind of love, and it looks pretty good. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of shots later, when the real off the rail stuff starts happening, that's real cool. But yeah, this is actually a pretty decent looking movie for having no budget and being straight to video.
Yeah, this was it came out in 1990, as we said, but then it didn't get a home video release until 2009. So that's a good 20 years nearly.
Yeah.
That this was just sort of lost, and the good people at Shudder have it on their streaming service right now. So good on them as well. Mm-hmm. Back at her apartment, we find out that she's kind of got a roach problem. Big city, am I right?
Yeah. Which I love, because all these bugs start showing up, and I just like the idea. It's no. You call it a health hazard. I call it a prop house. I'm going to use all these roaches and sell them to Stuart Gordon or Brian Yunza.
Yep.
It's disgusting.
She listens to her answering machine before the age of voicemail kids. And Hank has left her a message, says, "Mom cooked this whole dinner. Why haven't you called?" And like, it seems like now he's upset that she didn't make it, even though he didn't want her to come in the first place.
Because and she's all pissed at him because he gave her the shine, didn't back her play to write the article. And look, because she's already made dinner and looking at the book that FEMA gave her, and she's sitting down and looking, and like, with the power of the feminine is represented by the spiral, and she looks over to the spaghetti that she made, and the ketchup on the spaghetti is in a spiral.
I believe Brian Yesna's wife did the spaghetti, because when I was looking in the credits again today to find out the name of the actress who died in the very beginning, I noticed that there was a credit that just said pasta. And it was right under craft services. She sees the spiral in her spaghetti, and then a roach, and then spills her dinner, killing the roach. That really upset me because dinner time is sacred. Often my most happy part of the day, and spilling the dinner, that's just not cool.
Mamma mia.
Hank calls again and asks where she is. I just thought to myself, I think she just accepts the invitation finally because she just ruined her own dinner.
Yeah,
she's like, well, what am I going to do? Cook another dish? I'll go have free food.
You got roaches? No, I'll be there.
Right. Cut to idyllic Christmas with the family, in this Christmas movie that we're watching. At the beginning of this scene, I actually really liked the dad character, because I thought he was so funny, just sitting there looking irritated and drinking like a half a mug of like Michelob Light out of the mug.
You know where all that beer goes?
Excuse me?
Neither do I.
By the end of the scene, not so much.
Really burns off all that goodwill rather quickly.
The dad starts getting real shitty about how Christmases can't cross culture and all that kind of stuff, and how women belong in the home.
Yeah, because he finds out that she's Jewish. He starts explaining to Hank's younger brother she's Jewish, and that because he's like, "You got your tree yet?" She's like, "No." Gives this little speech, and the dad's like, he turns all full Archie Bunker about it.
Well, I think a woman's place is in the home, raising a family.
These are really good.
Woman was made from the rib of man. I think that's in your Bible too, huh?
Or I guess I should update my reference. Full Kanye West about it.
Yeah.
No, not full Kanye West. So he's got that going for him.
Not full.
But
it cuts to him is sitting there in the chair with that whole black ski mask over his face.
And it's really setting up like a great opportunity for this thing to be like, okay, well, like, Yuletide pagan stuff versus Christmas. Enjoy that because this is the only time that happens, because it doesn't matter for the rest of it.
Right.
And it's just another example of, this damn manocentric manocracy and men being awful to her, which is which continues because she eventually gets pissed and leaves.
Right.
Hank follows her out, and she starts talking about how bad that made her feel. And he's like, I know the problem. I'm not having sex with you. And he tries that. And weirdly enough, that she doesn't go for it. She's really pissed about it.
She completely rightfully just absolutely loses it on him. And I'm just like, I mean, I don't know.
It's very much like a high school relationship too, where it's like, but baby, I'd like to smooch you. That's how high schoolers talk. But she's like, no, this is bullshit. You're not backing me. You didn't back me when I wanted to write the story, and now you're treating me like shit. No, fuck you. I'm done. I don't care.
You're like a dog in heat.
What's the matter with you?
I am just as good as you, You and Eli and Jeff. And I'm sick of it. I'm going to do what I want, whether you like it or not. And I'm going to do the story I want to do.
With an attitude like that, you're going to lose your job.
Oh, yeah? Well, fuck my attitude and fuck the job and fuck you.
Absolutely, yeah. She justifiably storms off. She goes right back to the book that FEMA gave her, and comes across the chapter on the Fire of Lilith.
In the book, the Fire of Lilith, it's an image. I really like. I drew this on a napkin 5 minutes before the production needed it, of a woman with a spiral in her hand and her lower half just completely on fire.
And then we see a bunch of cockroaches, and then a giant cockroach on her wall. It's actually kind of neat.
Yeah, those are pretty cool. They're not as good as the grubs.
Agreed.
They're pretty neat. They have like a little skull kind of pattern on them, which is neat. Which also, inexplicably, her spaghetti is now in the shape of a hand, which I also liked.
Do bugs scare you ever?
I do not. I'm not a spider guy. I hate spiders.
Okay.
Bugs in
You're
general.
not that Marvel character spider guy.
Yeah, spider guy. Well, not Marvel, legally different spider guy. As far as bugs, like if they got those like tons of legs, no thanks. I think anything more than 6, I'm just like nah, not for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she starts like freaking out and kind of seeing these things and goes into the bathroom and vomits and passes out as a little antenna is going under the door, which I thought was really creepy.
Yeah, I had to watch this movie in 2 parts, so I came back to my notes and pulled up my Google sheet right here, and I kind of laughed to myself because I was like, settling in for the podcast again. Last note, let's see. She vomits in the toilet and passes out on the bathroom floor. Great. Let's dive back in.
I know exactly where I am.
So she wakes up and her friend from the office comes over. Her place is completely wrecked. And she ends up going to a picnic in a graveyard with FEMA and different women from her coven. Lost that Christmas feeling here.
Yeah.
We're off on a witch's picnic in a graveyard. Still pretty cool. They talk about Lilith from the Bible, who was Adam's first wife, if you don't know all that kind of good stuff. This isn't the Lilith cast, but you can look that kind of stuff up yourself if you want.
I'm on a different Lilith cast, but that's all about the wife of Frasier and Bebe New Earth.
Yes. Okay.
So if you don't get that confused with the other Lilith cast.
Right.
She was made from the same dirt, but she wouldn't let him lay on top of her.
Lilith. She left Adam and consorted with the power of night. She was the serpent that tempted Eve. Spirit of all that crawls.
That's a fun phrase.
Yeah. Did you recognize, so among the women at the picnic, did you recognize the older woman?
I don't think so, no.
She is yet another David Lynch alum. Jean Bates. She was Mrs. X in Eraserhead. And I this is where I noticed it first, was that she's the old woman in Mulholland Drive. Naomi Watts' character gets off the plane with, and then she and her husband are in the car just smiling.
Oh, I love that shot so much of the 2 old people in the back of the car.
That's that same actress, Jean Bates.
God.
David Lynch continues to permeate this series.
She's the spirit that all that crawls. I just want to think about him talking about these movies forever. They end up toasting to Kim. And I do love this because it looks like she has about a half a glass of wine and then decides that she doesn't want to go for a walk because she's too drunk.
Yes. This is the first sign. In truth, Hank was right to not back her getting the job because she's a very bad investigative reporter.
Oh, yeah.
Because these people are shady as hell.
I don't know what it is about that woman burning, but when I first saw that, I could almost feel it.
I never heard a thing.
You were there?
Yes, I spent the night at FEMA's.
What do you think could have possibly caused something like that?
She wasn't strong enough.
He's like, okay, well, I guess I'll just drink more. And then repeatedly throughout, these very obvious things are happening that she just sort of accepts. And having a main character that is not good at their job is the core of so many horror movies. But it is kind of frustrating. But in this case, you're like, if you're trying to make this kind of position that look at how all these men are holding her down, and then you back that up with, well, but they're kind of right. That's kind of a muddied message. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to take from that.
True. That's totally true. It's just we'd like to give you the opportunity, but you didn't know that you were hanging out with witches.
Do you normally have half a glass of wine and then just lose your shit? Is that normal for you?
This scene does have this really neat shot, though, of I think it is when she's laying on the blanket looking up the tree branches, and the branches form kind of like an odd face. It looks like an old painting or something like that. That was one of those effective, we're making a movie here, guys.
Yeah.
I bet they were proud of that.
Oh, sure. Hank finds her.
Yes.
All the other women have gone off, and Hank just shows up in a completely unrelated shot. They're not in the same scene together. He's just in a different shot. And he's like, hey, we should get back to work. And it turns out her pal at work the aforementioned Alice Beasley told him where to find her because she knew
right.
he was going to be at the book club thing. And she goes back and Reggie is pissed. And he gives her a big dressing down.
And then in the end, like, doesn't like Hank get her, he winks at her and like gets her the gig, like covering it. Like, does he come to bat for her right there? That's it.
Basically.
It was all kind of pretty gross.
Yeah, because Reggie's pissed because, and his name's not Reggie, but he's going to be Reggie.
You cannot contain Reggie.
You don't direct Reggie. You just get out of the way.
Right.
But he's like, yeah, so the things here are done a certain way. If you want to write a story, it's got to go through me, investigating. I didn't ask you to do that. Is your stuff even done? And then Hank chimes up with, well, yeah, actually, it's done through the month. I say let her follow it. And he's like, oh, fine. Yeah. But you got to have a man with you. And puts Hank on the scene with her as well. And Hank graciously is like, look, I'll give you top byline. They go back to the bookstore to take some photos.
Hank comes to her rescue, finally. He apologizes to her, and they kind of like kiss and make up on the roof for a bit. And I like how awkward that scene is, because he's like trying to hold her hands, but she's not letting him. But it's not. Yes, it's not this big acting out thing. It's very like little motions that I thought. I think I've been that guy before, where I'm trying to apologize and it's just not happening. But I hope I'm not as big of a piece of shit as Hank. But she eventually agrees. And girl, you can do better. This guy sucks. Mm-hmm. She goes to see the head of the coven. FEMA makes Kim some tea and puts something in it.
She puts something in it, and she's like,
white crystals.
Yeah, and it's like it's a little something. And she drinks it, goes like, oh, this is really bad. She's like, oh, you get used to it. Why are you still drinking it? You don't like it. Like, I could maybe do like one more and then just like not finish it because I don't like it. But she keeps drinking it and then like has another comment about it.
I'm feeling a little nauseous. Oh, that'll pass.
Stop drinking it again. Terrible.
Yeah.
At noticing the world around you.
Maybe she's just doing that whole like I have to be polite.
Could
like I cannot offend my host, but if she puts something in it that just looks like a drug. Yeah. And considering the last time she was around them, she passed out.
Right. Put it together.
Maybe don't.
She never does
here. Yeah.
But I do like this scene. I really like because this weird like power dynamic that starts to play out between them, because she starts to get kind of drugged out. FEMA is like talking to her about how she reminds her of her daughter. And there's a little bit of a sapphic undertone earlier where when she's laying down and passing out at the park that FEMA kisses her on the mouth, but it's a very like just a peck.
Yeah.
But then she's like, oh, you remind me of my daughter. Like I lost her, and then starts talking about like her marriage collapsing and how it was all her husband's fault. And you and Hank probably have great sex, right? But it's not going well. And really personal questions as while Kim is really kind of starting to fade out. Kim actually spills the tea, and then like immediately FEMA becomes like super controlling and yelling at her like,
Now look what you've done. Take this. No, under the saucer. Okay, that's enough. Not on the table.
I think because it felt grounded in reality, this weird, like emotionally abusive sort of thing that like, oh, okay, well, I might understand their relationship a bit more now. Kind of contextualizes it rather than just being like, well, I guess I'll drink another whatever you tell me to drink. It just, the control dynamic I thought was pretty interesting there.
Sure. She starts to feel like, I don't know, like safe. Well, she's always felt safe with with the coven, I suppose. But at this point, she takes another date. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it turns into a cockroach in front of her, and she goes ahead and eats it.
Yeah, FEMA's like, eat it, and she's like, okay.
She has visions from previously in the film. Luckily, it's not like a full flashback because in these movies you're just like, oh god, how much are we seeing?
Here's the first half hour again.
She lays down on the couch and she's pretty out of it. But the other witches start to surround her and start drawing on her body, on her
Billy Barty,
and start. Her Billy Barty start conducting like a small ritual, and then Ricky approaches with that rad worm thing, and then like a rat too.
Yes, because it puts the worm thing on her stomach where they've drawn a spiral, and then then he's holding a rat, and FEMA comes up, says something, and then slashes the rat. You don't see that, but you see like blood hit her.
Luckily, and
then she coughs up one of those things, one of the larvae worm things. It's very disgusting.
Grubs, yeah.
And then it's lying on the ground. Ricky cuts it in half and then just like holds it over her face, and goop starts falling on her face. Mm-hmm. It's very like sexually charged, but I also wonder because later, because it's a bunch of like clear liquid, like it's almost looks
It's
like
viscous, though.
it's viscous, but it almost looks like the stuff that's inside hand sanitizer. It looks like hand sanitizer almost, that kind of like gloopy kind of thing. And I don't know if they were trying to go for because later you see in Hank's apartment, I think it's in Hank's apartment, if not hers, there's a Man Ray photo. A famous Man Ray photo of like the eyes with like the round tears that are just sitting on her face.
Oh,
I don't know if it was supposed to be a thing of that, but it definitely reads as more like pornographic and gross.
Yeah.
But I don't think it could go either way. I mean, because it is a very sort of weirdly sexually charged scene. Again, all these very sort of tubular, phallic looking larvae coming out of her, going, and then so it's unclear what happens there, because then she wakes up and is like, oh my God, what happened? And they're like, oh, nothing, you just fell asleep. And she's like, no, I didn't. This is fucked up. And then like she runs home. She's freaked out. And then finds Hank when she gets home. And Hank's like, oh, has been concerned. And she immediately just like gets super torqued, gets super horny for him.
Yep. Yeah.
And they start, she starts like really just assaulting him, basically. He doesn't mind, but
that little bit right there was... And it's been years since I've watched this, and I need to rewatch it. But it started reminding me of Rosemary's Baby a little bit, with like the coven of which she wakes up in her apartment, she's been assaulted, and they're like totally just gaslighting her and telling her like, no, it's all fine. You just had a giant worm come out of your mouth, no problem.
Yeah, and I mean, and there's plenty of movies like that where it's particularly later with the reveal that everyone's in on it, kind of thing. Well, we can get into that, to more of that is in the wrap up, but I like that element of this. I just wish they leaned into it a little harder, and that what the witches wanted was more apparent. Because there's also some ties to like
they just want to initiate her,
to the initiation. Because there's things that made me also think about Suspiria as well, with just like all the bugs that they have a big goon hanging around, apparently at their beck and call, just like it's Suspiria. But Suspiria was at least in whatever. I'll say that to the end. But I actually really like this scene. It's really, really creepy. Is that while they're having sex, Ricky just shows up and he just comes in and he just sits on the bed and starts watching Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 3
on television,
which is great. But like that to me is the best tie, because it's like in Part 2 when they're watching Part 1 and they just went, sure.
Next week when we watch Part 5, do you think that they'll watch Part 4? Like, they got to keep it going.
I think it's only even numbered ones that are allowed to do that, that are allowed to look back.
Okay.
But it's great just how like casual he is about it, because he's totally like, this is all part of the plan. And he's like, all right, well, I'll just let this happen, and then I'll watch this Killer Santa. When they notice him, when Hank finally notices him,
who the fuck are you? Santa Claus killer.
Oh wait, you're pissed that I'm here? What?
Hank then beats him with a broom, and then Ricky bites him on his Achilles tendon.
Ooh, that's brutal.
And that just begins a whole sequence that I think, especially because it's low budget and because it's Clint Howard, I think this whole sequence is really, really effective.
Yeah.
It's gross. It's uncomfortable. There's something about the stabbings that are, way more uncomfortable than like a Friday the 13th slasher sequence.
Compared to Part 3, where I had that issue where when they stabbed Ricky, it was just like nothing. It was just like this empty space, and then just like. Whereas this is that concept executed so much better. Ricky in this, whoever this Ricky is, this Clint Howard, is so like not menacing or like he's just there. It's only when he starts to go get her, and it's like, we gotta go, and starts stabbing at the door, that it kind of starts to get a little bit more unhinged. But it just kind of feels like this is all very normal for Ricky, and that is way more terrifying than him just being like, wah ha 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 ha. I'm enjoying this. I thought that was a neat way to go about it. And then, besides biting his foot, Kim goes into the bathroom to hide, and he sticks the knife under the door and slashes her foot, which, oh man, that got me. That's like watching someone get a paper cut in a movie. Foot pain. Woof.
Yeah, the whole gentle stabbing, I don't know, like it definitely stuck with me. He catches up to Kim and tapes her up, and then she hides under the bed and watches Ricky kill Hank, because we just see Hank's blood go all over Ricky's feet.
Yeah, tons of blood.
I don't know if this was a case of budget, like they didn't have the budget to show the whole fight or the time or whatever. But if so, it's a fantastic moment of movie making where it's just like, well, embrace your limitations.
Yeah.
Just keep the camera under the bed, show blood pouring down onto the feet. It was suitably creepy, I thought. It was way creepier than just like seeing the knife.
Right, because it's not about the gore; it's about her horror at seeing that, and so that's a pretty effective way to do that.
Yeah.
You know, the realization that he's gone, you know, and just complete powerless, and you don't even see the whole thing. Yeah, I thought it was great. Janice from work had called, being like, "Hey, you know, I haven't heard from you. What's going on?" And she picks up the phone, escapes Clint Howard enough to pick up the phone and be like, "Call the police! Help! I'm being attacked!" And rather than call the police, Janice just shows up. Catches Ricky. Ricky's like, oh my God. And she just takes the knife away from Ricky. Janice is in on it. Oh no. Even though she's not been around any of the witches, you know, doing the stuff that would have made some sense, but that's okay because it's a twist.
I laughed so hard when she just took the knife out of his hand, though. That was so funny because it makes Ricky just feel like a child.
Absolutely.
Like, you've got something that you shouldn't have in your hand. I'm just going to take it from your hand immediately, which is something that Hank couldn't do and Kim couldn't do. She just comes in. But I guess if he knows who she is and she's a part of everything, I guess it makes sense that he was a little disarmed by that. But still, it made me laugh so hard.
for the alleged power that these witches or this group has is that they're able to just easily emasculate Ricky. Just be like, oh yeah, that your knife, yoink, that's mine now. And it's a subtle thing, and I like that, and I wish there was a little bit more throughout the way this reveal happens, even though it's not even that exciting that it's a reveal. I still like that it was done casually. That it wasn't like this bump, bump, bump. It was like, oh, I guess she's in on it. Shit. Like, who can you trust now? And and she takes her out of the scene of the crime and into a meat locker.
From here on out, it gets pretty bizarre. This is very much the turning point in the movie. I don't know how they got to the meat locker. I don't know where the meat locker is. I guess we kind of get that reveal a little bit later. But she comes to and all the witches are around her. Ricky is wearing this very creepy phallic nose mask.
Yeah, like it's almost like Eyes Wide Shut or Clockwork Orange probably is more appropriate.
Clockwork Orange, yeah. And like at first I was kind of digging like the sequence being like this kind of folk magic type of deal. But that takes a hard turn, and I stopped liking it so much
because it starts getting real weird.
Yeah, once Clint Howard starts assaulting Kim, I was just like, oh, gross. This is the part of these kind of movies that I don't really respond well to.
Yeah, because they start lubing him up. All the witches start like greasing him up, which is not a thing anyone needs to see. Yeah, they keep doing this weird ritual, and apparently it involves Clint Howard having sex with her. It's really uncomfortable. But
exactly.
It's nightmarish. It's supposed to be, but it's not. You know.
Yeah, it works for what it's trying to do.
Yeah, but it's really upsetting, and then that mercifully ends.
I did write down like what it must be like to be Clint Howard. So you show up on set one day. You're going to get oiled down. You have to wear this phallic mask and then, act like you're assaulting the lead actress in this sequence. And what a weird life,
Right. But normally it's like, oh, we need you to eat a rat and then we're going to throw feces at you. And he's like, okay.
Okay.
I'm the weird guy. And it's like, we're going to have some women lube you up. And he's like, oh, all right. It's the same thing to me. I'm Clint Howard.
Yep. Jumps into whatever people ask him to do.
Professional, weird looking guy. Yeah, when she wakes up the next day or whenever, she's still in the meat locker. She starts like changing. Her fingers start like binding themselves together in a knot. Again, Screaming Mad George, amazing effects. I love these.
Yeah.
They don't make a damn bit of sense, but I still think it's cool what's happening. Her legs fuse together and like her feet are bending back, almost like she's becoming a larva thing. I don't know.
What I thought was implied. Yeah, she was becoming one, but she was also like choking one up. She's just, it goes like a tiny bit society here, especially with the fingers fusing together with, like Screaming Mad George's stuff.
Then she passes out again. And when she wakes up this time, her legs are like still bound together by something. This cocoon, she just cracks it open and the door opens and it's the Chinese butcher from before. He starts yelling at her in Chinese, like, get out of here. Then his wife shows up. His wife was at the thing. She's in on it too. Everyone's in on it.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's in on it.
She kind of hushes him up and shepherds her out.
You have been initiated. You go.
You've been initiated. So it's like, okay, so that was it. This is the whole point.
Yeah, like you'd think one of them, if this was an initiation thing, one of them would be there afterwards to be like, welcome.
Yeah. Here are your powers.
Right. Here's a handbook.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a pamphlet. Here's your lanyard and ID card. But no, she just goes. She just leaves.
Although she looks over and sees Hank's body suspended by his nipples from meat hooks, which was pretty gnarly.
That's, yeah.
That was
Clive
a great
Barker
shot.
saw it and just his head just exploded. He was
Not just his head.
Finally a movie for me.
Yeah.
She's not sure if it wasn't just some weird trip or hallucination or something. So she has a cop come to her house.
Yeah.
No blood, no sign of anything happening. No body, no stabbed door, nothing. And the cop's like,
Ma'am, are you in therapy?
No, not in therapy.
Or would you like me to recommend somebody for you?
In the bookstore, we find out that Fima's daughter was the one who jumped at the beginning of the film. And I believe she's called Lily.
Yeah, Lilith.
Fima thinks that Kim will take her daughter's place and be her kind of surrogate daughter, essentially.
Right, because Lily wasn't strong enough for the whatever they were trying to do. What was that?
Yeah.
Don't know. Not important, I guess.
Yeah.
It's extremely important. What are you trying to do? What's at stake with any of this?
Yeah,
Don't know.
exactly. This movie is called The Initiation. It's not called the reason or the reasoning.
It's not called because this.
Yeah, because it's just called. All we want to do is initiate you.
Yeah, we saw it. Got what we paid for.
She says something about.
I've been hallucinating. You drugged me.
No, it's not hallucinations. You gave form to the fear inside you. You created these things from the power of magic within you.
And need a life to feed your fears. So the ladies at the bookstore tell her to bring a boy, and it's Hank's little brother. And the funniest thing about this to me is I feel like we just went through the climax of the movie. Yeah. But no, there's another 15 minutes or so narratively. It just feels very tacked on just as far as structure goes.
Well, and I would be very, and again, this is not a person that questions anything, which is why she shouldn't be an investigative reporter. But if I was look, I was just initiated. Now I got to find someone to kill. Yeah. This seems like a pyramid scheme. This seems like an MLM thing. Is this going to be about essential oils? I don't want to be a part of this.
We move right on to the human sacrifice.
Well, because also if the stated thing of FEMA is I just really wanted a daughter. I wanted a daughter. She says it a couple of times. She's like, you're my daughter now. Oh, go kill someone. Wait, what? Yeah. I thought this whole thing was about me becoming your daughter. And I was like, no, you have to go kill someone because of reasons that we all know.
She has high expectations for her daughter.
I guess, yeah.
She will commit murder for her.
They're like, don't worry about it. It's just a man, which is kind of dumb because they have Clint Howard do everything for them. Yeah. If you guys are this powerful, why is Clint Howard doing all this work for you? I understand, maybe you don't want to, be implicated, but you're witches apparently do some magic or something. You don't need Clint Howard to do everything for you.
Yeah.
If the idea is that this sort of feminine power thing should be feared, because that's what so often these witch things are, is that some sort of feminine power thinking for themselves that oh God, imagine if they could get along without men. Yeah. But then they don't. So if he's trying to, if Yunza's trying to undercut that whole thing, maybe, but even that's not very effective. It's just muddy. The whole thing's just muddy. But anyway, so they want her to go kill Hank's little brother, and she does not want to do it. But I do like this bit because Ricky starts following, because she storms out. Ricky starts following her, and she starts to get painfully hot. Her stomach's she's just having upset. But then she hops into the shower and she's kind of starting to burn up. And I kind of like that internal ticking time bomb inside of her. Sure. Yeah, we've initiated you. That means we control you. And if you don't do what we say, you're on fire.
Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, Ricky is there. Mm-hmm. He knew that she was going to be combusting, I suppose. Ricky drives her to Hank's family home that we saw earlier. They're all kind of around the tree, Christmas Eve style. And the little brother comes out to talk to Hank and Kim, and they just full on just kidnap him right there. So Kim takes him to the van while Ricky inexplicably just moves in to kill the father by strangling him with Christmas lights. which we've seen before.
Like, so it seems like this was a task for her to go do.
Yeah.
Not only to feed the power, but also to sort of, ensure her loyalty. So I don't know if Ricky was not supposed to be there, but you could have just sent Ricky.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the one Christmas death is that Ricky strangles Hank's dad with Christmas lights. So technically it's a Christmas killing movie. Silent Night, Deadly Night, boom.
Yeah.
Box checked.
Rip Hank's dad. Who, again, as we do in slasher movies, we make him a reprehensible character so that we don't mind him getting murdered later on.
Then we're all for it later.
Yeah.
But they take the kid to the roof of the building. And I thought this was going to be full on Dr. Sleep, where they just murder a child.
Yeah.
But fortunately, it's not Dr. Sleep. It's not.
It
doesn't mean it's a good movie, but yeah.
Yeah.
But it does have going for it that it is not Dr. Sleep.
Yes.
But it becomes this huge standoff thing. They want her to stab the kid. Kim doesn't want to do it. FEMA's like, how dare you defy me? Why are you always defying me?
Because I'm your daughter. That's what daughters do. Step one, just like your mom.
Yeah, you wanted me to be your daughter. This is what being your daughter's like.
Now I'm petulant.
You should have thought of that. Yeah. But then FEMA grabs her hand to try to stab to guide her hand to stab the kid, but then Kim guides the knife right into FEMA's stomach.
Whoa, twist.
Yeah. FEMA pulls out the knife and is like, gonna kill Kim, but then Ricky steps in front and is like, hey, don't. I like this person. She's nice to me. Plus, you made me have sex with her. FEMA stabs him. He's done.
Right.
Then, I just love it because there's all these big larvae up there, too, and they start feeding on Ricky. Why? I don't know, but it's cool. It looks neat.
It doesn't matter. Clint Howard commits. He's just like, yes, I will get eaten alive by grubs for the end of this film. Absolutely. And, I think we've mentioned this before with some of the creature effects and stuff, maybe in Phantasm, but this movie does, Screaming Mad George does a great job of you just got to douse these things in wet stuff to make these creatures look good, because you never want a dry creature. It just doesn't look good.
It does.
You want that light reflecting off of it.
I mean, particularly in the case of these things where it's just so disgusting. It really has to. But I also like the idea that Clint Howard is reading the script and he's like, so let me get this straight. So all these women, I'm shirtless, all these women rub me down with oil. Do you have a scene where I'm eaten by something? Grubs? Great. Yeah, no, I'm in. That's perfect.
Do it.
That's what he's like. I don't understand human affection and touch. Can you just maul me in some capacity?
Please, yes.
I get it.
Right.
Kim's legs start getting hot. Her hands start getting all weird again. Her fingers get everything everywhere all at once, bending all these different ways. And then they kind of start knotting themselves together and form this giant kind of phallic candle thing that a fire starts on the end of it, and then she stabs FEMA with it into the knife wound, starts FEMA on fire, and she falls off the building, much like her daughter. Then they just look down at the body, and then they look at each other.
Yep.
And then that's the movie.
And then that's it.
I mean, that's the rest of the Coven is oh, ain't that some shit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tracking how magic works in this, I don't know. I think that might be a fool's errand to just be Kim's hands start to combust. Is she controlling that? And then she just stabs FEMA with that and passes
I don't think it was a
on.
controlling thing, but I think that somehow, she passed it on. That whatever was happening inside of her, she's oh, I'll just put the fire in you now. And then, oh, it looks like you can't handle it. And then we're back to square one.
Right.
And screw you guys.
Yeah, quite a difference from the last three films. And one thing I did notice in this when I was getting our dead together, which let's just throw to that right now. Lily, played by Unknown, falls from building, spontaneous combustion. Hank, played by Tommy Hinckley, stabbed repeatedly by Ricky. Gus, played by Ben Slack, choked to death by Christmas lights. Ricky, played by Clint Howard, stabbed by FEMA, eaten by bugs. FEMA, played by Maud Adams, stabbed in the gut, fell from building, also combusted. This was very different in the sense that the first kill happens an hour into this movie. And it's Hank they're clearly getting away from the slasher elements. By the time you're an hour into a slasher movie, you got like a good 5-6 people gone on your body count. So this was way more about like the creepy visions, the bugs, the witchcraft, all that kind of thing. So yeah, we only had 5 bodies in this movie.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Man, unless Mickey Rooney just really pulls it out in the clutch, I am so over on my death
right.
count.
I think both of us are.
Yeah. It's and it's like I appreciate for being completely just moving entirely away from whatever this franchise has been, which I mean, admittedly was running out of steam. I mean, they had a guy with a dome on his head.
Yeah.
I'm curious what part 5 is going to come up with. But it's like this movie is very frustrating because there's a lot of cool stuff in here, but there's no cohesion.
Yeah.
If they really tied in some of these effects more with the Lilith thing, like I know she's like the ruler of all that crawls, but if they made that more, they underlined that a bit more, or something like that, because it felt like the bugs were ancillary to everything else, or if like the witches were much more sort of like earthy or something that called for it. It just felt like, oh, also there's bugs.
Yeah.
And same thing, like I mentioned, there's no shortage of movies that are someone is infected by a cult or becomes part of a cult or something, and it just gets worse and worse. I mean,
I love that stuff.
Not a cult, but like Dead and Buried is one. Lords of Salem, I just watched recently. That's kind of like that. Hereditary, whatever. All these movies. But it's like I needed more of that downfall. Her not knowing what's real or not. They really kind of like glanced by that. And you don't necessarily have to do that, but it would just give this movie some sort of dramatic weight. And then, because it's just, she just believes everything the witches tell her, and then nothing really bad happens until it all, some more drama in that, and that might have been more interesting. And again, like if I knew what the witch's purpose was, if what this was all towards would have been something, rather than just like, no, it's just what we do. It's not like, and again, like
just
in
want to
Suspiria,
initiate people.
in Suspiria, there's this idea that like, well, yes, this is the coven and we feed off these dancers, and then you break that cycle. But this is just, no, we want you to replace my daughter and do the ritual. Well, ritual for what? The Lilith. Okay, what's that going to do? I don't know. And is that even going to bring back Lilith, or is it just a thing that's this? We go through all this just to say happy birthday, Lilith, and we conjure up a demonic birthday card for it. Right. You open it up and it says "Thanks for the memories." There's a bat on the front. It's cute. I don't know what you want out of this.
Yeah.
So that was rather frustrating.
Yeah, not knowing the purpose of the call, and like I constantly come back to with horror is it better to know less or better to know more? Is it better to know less for like a little bit of the capital W weird, but it's such a tricky balance to strike. And I want more out of this, Yeah,
I feel like you got to give me, a place to stand here. You got to give me like something that I just need to know what your goal is. I don't need to know the intricacies of how this is all going about, but it's like, again, like just thinking of when you're just saying like, do I want to understand? My brain just goes to Mandy of just like how kind of weird that is, and how it's just like, no, this guy's a piece of shit. That's all you need to know.
Right. Sure.
But yeah, like it just give me some sort of sense of this. It's all very like, it's brushed over so quickly and all of it that, I don't have any idea really what's going on. It's disappointing because I think there's a lot of like the big freak out scenes are really great. And really disturbing, and I wish there was some more that the other scenes bolstered those a lot more.
It does have a lot of. Here's another similarity, but with the Hellraiser straight to video movies, but like it does have a whole lot of like passing out and waking up, which I always find just so lazy.
Yeah,
just like I'm not saying you can't do that, but like when you do it like 3 times in a movie,
right?
I get a little exhausted of that because you just don't know how to end a scene or begin a scene, Well,
that happened a few times in this where like particularly at the beginning when Kim's all pissed because she didn't get the news report and she's talking to Janice, and then she's like, man, like you can't live with them. And then Janice just kind of awkwardly ends that conversation.
Right.
It's like, I understand maybe if that was the point of it's like, well, then they don't get along or something, but it didn't feel like that. It just felt like, well, I got to get to the next scene. I don't know what happens here, so I'll just kind of turn this way, and I don't know.
Yeah,
some of it just felt kind of rushed, I suppose.
Maybe some of the plot, like I do remember a line where like we have to get rid of the masculine, so maybe that's like symbolized by the grubs, and so like all these witches are just like coughing up grubs to get rid of their masculine like
could be
stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's close, and that's kind of interesting.
It's at least an ethos, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's It's an idea because it just felt like a bunch of because there you have the grubs and then like the body kind of going out of control, that it just didn't feel like there was no like cohesive thing that brought that all together. It was all neat in its own thing, but it just seemed so disparate and just like, I have ideas, let's just do it because we can. And a little bit more cohesion than that would have been neat. But I mean, I suppose that's it. If the grubs are indeed this masculine thing, which is probably like the best read on it. That I can think of anyway.
I can be pretty judicious with this kind of stuff. And I was just glad that I watched this because it was a Brian Yuzna and Screaming Mad George film. And it was just another one of those like, well, I saw another one of their works. And it was very much, this movie went in places that I did not anticipate at all. So there is that to it. Yeah. And this is definitely a case when we started this series, I had no idea that this movie would be here. I just thought it'd be 5 Santa killer movies. So like this is, I think I've said this several times during the podcast, but like, this is a good example of like why I wanted to do this podcast, because I really wanted to like fill out the gaps that I have like this. And I'm glad that I've seen this one, it's so bizarre.
I don't dislike that I watched it. I was kind of tired of the gimmick because they clearly the filmmakers were too. And so like, this being completely different, I wasn't too upset about.
Yeah.
It just, what bums me out is that it feels like the first draft of something.
Yeah.
It feels like this needed some more time in the script stage or something, because there's some neat ideas here. There's some really good stuff, but it just doesn't quite come together the way I'd like. Totally. So it's going to be weird now to kind of go back. I mean, it's not to keep talking about Reggie and Phantasm, but like, I mean, it's like Phantasm 4 compared to Phantasm 3 and 5 and whatever, where it's like we get these weird action pieces, and then it's like, oh, here's this weird kind of tone poem.
Right.
So it's like, fine. We had this weird aside. I guess we're going to get back into Christmas evil stuff now. Yeah. Or evil Christmas stuff. Okay. You know, I this was a detour I didn't mind.
Definitely worth watching if you like goopy effects and you want cults, witches, like that kind of thing. Like a real Santa Claus movie, like a real December 25th film.
Yeah, straight up Christmas. If you want a realization of how unprepared you've been your entire life for a lubed up Clint Howard, I watched this movie.
Yeah,
because I've wasted my life not preparing myself for that moment.
Yeah,
Clint Howard could be getting greased up right now,
and you're not ready,
and I'm not ready for that.
Maybe we're a little more ready now that we've seen this, so I feel more comfortable with it. It's like if you play the Call of Cthulhu role playing game, if you see an evil monster, you go a little bit crazy, but if you see it again, you don't go as crazy, right? Because you've seen it. So it's like, all right, my psychic damage wouldn't be as bad if Clint Howard would have kick in my door and start greasing himself up. We now have a floor for our lubed up Clint Howard level right now.
Yeah, for shirtless Clint Howard, shirtless greasy Clint Howard, leveled up. So that's something anyway.
Yeah. Love that guy. And on that note, we will sign off on part 4. We have part 5 and the remake left to discuss. I'm kind of looking forward to part 5 after this one. Yeah. I'm curious.
I guess it's sort of like, makes you appreciate what you got.
Yeah.
Sure. Like, sure. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to get Christmassy again. Why not?
And are there any other shows that you want to plug? I just thought we should probably start doing that. Like, mention your other podcasts at the end of each of these.
I'm on another podcast called John and Alex Hate Stuff. We've been doing it for far too long. That's JOHN and Alex with 2 X's. We don't actually hate everything that we review, but it just made for a neat acronym.
Yeah.
JAWS. We just talk about other non-horror movies for the most part, but occasionally dive into that. So if you like hearing me honk out my opinions on this show, I do that over there as well.
Other, non-horror movies, big budget Hollywood films. Take those guys down
a lot of times.
Yeah.
Stick it to
Take
them
that
by liking their movies.
Right. And if you like narrative fiction podcasts, my business partner, Courtney, and I started one recently. It's mainly her, actually. She does most of the legwork on that. It's called Please Leave, and it's all like horror fiction. And she also does another one called They Will Kill, which is all true crime, which I know is the the rage these days. So if you're into any of those, check those out. And you can follow us on Instagram at This May Hurt a Bit Pod and Twitter at Hurt a Bit. We'll keep posting all the fun videos that John makes, and let us know what you think of this series. If you prefer the Yuznaverse of Ricky, or if you prefer the original flavor Ricky and the first 3 films. So actually, part 2 and part 3 really it is the
just if you like the Caldwells, if you like that
the
goofy
Caldwells,
family.
yeah. All right, well, we'll see you next week for Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 5, The Toy Maker. So you can watch that on Shudder just in case you want to keep up with us. And we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. This has been a Two Penguins media production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at This May Hurt a Bit Pod and on Twitter at Hurt a Bit. Email us at thismayhurtabit@gmail.com. And if you are so inclined, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.